harbingers or 4 harbingers of modernity. You remember those 4 harbingers? And we also talked a little bit about All Quiet on the Western Front in World War I, which we will start World War I pretty soon here. Today we're going to be taking just a little dip back and taking a look at imperialism here, just because that helps. Of course.
Yes. I think funny.
Why wouldn't I?
Some teachers aren't cool with that. So I didn't know.
Hey, what's the worst that could happen? They could fire me?
No, yeah.
Well, that there is, how many years you got left, Arthur Reed?
I've got anywhere between 5 and 8.
How old is your youngest?
My youngest daughter she is completing her 5th grade year.
Wow.
So she's going to be in the Farmington School District 7 more years.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I get fired, that's okay. I can always, like sell my plasma. It's good stuff. I got plasma, I'm ready to sell it. It's good times. I mean, actually, I see the whole paper thing is like a really good outlet, because if we don't let you do paper, you could do much worse things. Because really in a half hour, it's all cleaned up. Nobody knows. The only piece of advice I would give you seniors and any juniors or sophomores who are going to go watch the paper shredding ceremony or the event down there is wear goggles and a breathing apparatus, because there's so much paper dust in the air, you're going to be coughing for a while.
Sometimes they throw soda stream.
Yeah, you may want to do that. The other thing is, like, don't have your phone out, okay? Trying to take pictures of it, because sometimes people's phones get knocked down and in the massive amount of paper, and then they lose them. So,
When is this?
what is this planned for? It is the seniors' last day, so that will be immediately after school on May 14th.
Is it the 14th?
I'm good at looking at pictures.
14th.
Yeah.
I'm glad I made somebody's day
Doesn't that
better
one day
today.
make such a big difference?
Yeah! Oh, dude, okay.
One less day. So Maria, where are you going to school?
Okay, so I should know by the end of the week.
Ask her
You've
next
been
Monday.
saying this for
I
like 5 months.
I'm working on it. Dream is Ole Miss right now.
Ole Miss.
But I'm talking with the financial people and I'm trying to get that all figured out. So if that doesn't work, then it's livable.
Okay, so it's you're either going to go to Oxford, Mississippi, or you're going to be going to St. John's.
Yeah, it's very different.
We both were like, wait.
Wait, so you're gonna go an hour away,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah, one is like the really safe bet and one is the really not safe bet.
Me and Cody just like looked at each other. We were like,
Yeah, no.
Actually, Ole Miss isn't that far. It's
I
about a
know.
6-hour drive from here.
only 6.
I thought it was 5.
Or, okay, 5 if you
Yeah.
drive
Fast.
faster.
Yeah, and it's just
she has a Cadillac.
Oh, well then you're cruising. Okay. Let's see. Mizzou.
Tires today.
You're both going to Mizzou.
Roommates.
Roommates at Mizzou.
Oh,
You got your housing squared away.
Yes.
You're going to Mo State.
I am. Most days
You're going to Mo State. You're still up in the air. You're McKendree. Okay. So we know where our seniors are going. Juniors, where are you going?
Ask us next year.
What's that? You'll
Ask
decide
us
next
next
year.
year.
Okay.
I want to go to Lindenwood.
Lindenwood. Are you going to dance there?
Well, I'm hoping to.
You're hoping to. Okay. Emily, where are you thinking of going?
Oh, no clue.
No clue. That's good.
That's my girl.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask.
Okay, so you're going to kind of be in the same boat that Maria is.
But
Moving
don't
toward
aspire.
May.
This wasn't
Like-
the plan. I planned to have it like
You should have
decided in January and then it.
all last
Just
week.
time
She
got
was
late,
so
bro.
nervous and stressed. You couldn't even talk to her.
All joking aside, though, you don't have to, for sophomores and juniors, and Maria, you don't have to make a plan until, you don't have to decide or accept an offer until May 1st. Okay, I know.
the corner.
Well, it is around
I
the
know, it's
corner,
really
but you
impending.
have that time. And one thing that I would really encourage you guys to do, because a lot of students I know get super nervous and they're like, I've got to know where I'm going and what's going on, and what if I apply and I get offers and I accept initially all of them. Unless your early action none of those offers are binding until May 1st.
But they won't leave you alone, and that's annoying.
Well, they won't, but at the end of the day, you can just block their calls.
I do. I had to tell Miss Mary Kate from Moab to leave me alone in a polite manner.
I get about 15 college emails a day.
Oh yeah, Mobab.
Iowa wants me.
Yeah.
Mobab
But
puts me a lot.
I will,
University of Iowa.
Mobile
They have
calls
emailed
me.
me
I
seven times.
figured
a day.
they would email you a
Yeah.
lot, given
A
the
lot of
family
people
connection.
email me a lot because I haven't said anything, so they're like, oh, maybe she's still coming. And yeah.
Where?
SEMO is just
Everywhere.
after college.
Yeah.
I mean, I
But
applied
guys,
to
I would just give you this piece of advice, sophomores and juniors, give you this piece of advice that school, don't feel badly about waiting and making the decision. You really want to make a decision about your school based on, I think first of all, the major consideration is financials. You know, are you going to be able to afford it? You know, and is there a good financial aid package? A lot of times people don't understand the difference between grants, scholarships, and loans. Grants and scholarships are awesome because what do you not have to do to grants and scholarships?
Pay those back.
You don't have to pay them back. Loans, not so awesome because what do you have to do? Pay them back. So some schools are a little less genuine. They will show your financial aid package and it will have your, it will show, oh look, you only have to pay this amount of money, but they'll throw in the loans with the scholarship and the grants. Like, look, you don't have this, well, you gotta pay that back. So it's choking you up, isn't it? Terrible.
What's
Yeah.
the
Oh, I did.
difference? What's the difference between a grant and a scholarship?
A scholarship is based on merit. So you're an awesome dancer, or you're an awesome student, or you're an awesome athlete, they're gonna give you some money for free. A grant is, we just really like you, or you have need, okay? You come from a rural community, or you're an underserved group on our campus, whatever, we're going to give you some money that you don't have to pay back.
Make yourself seem as poor as possible without committing tax fraud.
How come it costs so much?
What's that?
How come it costs so much?
How much colleges cost so much? I think one of the reasons why colleges cost so much, in the last 25 years, our nation and our states have not valued higher education. We valued lower tax rates more than we have valued cheap, affordable higher ed. Give you a case in point. I graduated from high school in 1989. And when I went to Truman State back then, room, board, tuition, the whole shooting match was $3,500. Today it's about $17,000 a year. And Bright Flight was also $2,000 when I went to college. Today I think Bright Flight is $2,500. The scholarships haven't kept pace with the rising costs of higher education. Also, when I went back and got my aptly named BS in education, I did that through the University of Missouri system, and I was able to pay for that degree basically out of pocket change. The MU system was, a year might cost $1,800 in tuition, in the early 90s. That's not what it is today. I think Mizzou's sticker price, if you throw everything in at list, is about $25,000. So, I mean, that's really what it is. I really wish that if it were up to me, I don't know that I would have free college, but it would be a very much reduced rate. I don't know that I would ever make it free, because I think as long as you have to pay something, you're going to perform at a much higher level, because you have some financial skin in the game, as they say. Whereas it's just free, then no. But I hope we kind of go back to where we have post-secondary training, whether that's trade schools or universities, for folks to go to and make, have it affordable. Because I think one of the great crises that we have today is the student loan debt. If you go to Mizzou today and you don't have a good scholarship or tuition, for that, it is about 25 grand. And one of the things that I think that's been good about the dual credit program here is I think, in some ways it's been mismarketed over the last few years, but I do think one thing that's been good about it is that typically people can graduate in 4 years. I think sometimes people thought, well, if I get out, I can graduate in 2 if I have an AA degree, and a lot of times that's not going to happen. But increasingly, people are taking 6 years to graduate from their 4-year institution. I think the AA has kind of stopped that for a lot of students who have taken, even if they don't earn their AA, but they've had 20 hours or 30 hours. That's kind of padded that transition a little bit. And I think one of the things that's kind of nice about that is if you go to Mizzou and let's say you don't have scholarships, that's $100,000 in 4 years. And if you're taking 6 years, that's $150,000.
Whole house.
That's a house.
Or a really nice sports car.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of money. And if you come out, and all of you are probably too smart to ever want to become teachers. But, the thing of it is, if you have $150,000 in debt, what's a teacher going to start out making here at Farmington High School?
Isn't it like 35?
Yeah, it's about $35,000 a year.
Just sign.
Okay, so folks, if you're coming out with $35,000 a year, this is your salary, okay? And Farmington's kind of a middle of the pack school district. We're not the poorest and we're not the richest as far as what they pay teachers. Okay, they are much higher. The thing of it is though, folks, my point is that if you're coming out and you're going to be making $35,000 a year, and you've got $150,000 student loan debt, it's going to take you 25 to 30 years to pay that off. Plus, you may want to have a house, kids, a car, stuff. And one of the things that I think that's also kind of troubling about that is, and I had a student ask me this point blank because he was considering going to college or not, and he asked me, should I go to college today or not? And I said, well, I think it depends what you want to do. A, does your family have some money so do you have some wiggle room? But B, what is it that you want to major in? If you want to go to college and major in museum studies, and you're going to have to take out loans for $150,000, probably not. Why? Because you know what museum studies folks are going to be making a year? About $20,000 a year. And the cost-benefit ratio of that, so much. But let's say you go to college and you're going to become, I don't know, let's just throw out there a nurse, a BSN.
You don't need a college degree for that.
How much are you going to make as a BSN starting out? About $50,000 to $60,000. So it kind of depends what you want to do. On one hand, I would like to say that higher ed is valuable because it teaches you to think, which I do like, and I think is an advantage. But if you're having to pay $100,000 to $150,000, you also want to know how to think, but you also want to have a job. So I would say, getting back to my original point, you want to make your decision based on cost and also based on the program that they have. So, if you want to go to Rolla and be a theater major, that's stupid. Okay? Because they don't have a good theater program. Okay? If you want to go to Rolla and be an engineer, that's great. Okay? You got to think about the school. The one thing that you do not ever want to do is to pick a university or a college or any post-secondary institution, because that's what your current boyfriend or girlfriend is going to. Because I would bet everything that you will end up breaking up with that current significant other. You will go there and you will, unless you're already married, you will break up. Why? You're not doing it for yourself, and can't argue with that one, Bridget.
We don't make
Good
the
job,
rules.
Bridget. Proud of you.
Yeah, you really can. I mean, you're going to meet a whole lot more people once you go away to college. Here, you're just kind of in a captive little pond. You're going to be going to a larger sea or ocean.
There's more fish
There are more fish there. Well, sometimes they're better fish, but they may also be more like you because they chose to go there because of their interests. Whereas here, it's just a geographical oddity that you know these people. I mean, honestly.
there.
And I'm not trying to talk badly about this community, I'm just saying,
You can if you want.
you know, it is what it is. Okay. I guess I need to get on here with imperialism. Do you guys have any questions, anything else about college? Maria, anything I can help you with?
She's college choice. What are you trying to study?
What are you trying to say? Yeah.
Maria's like, no. Stop asking me these questions I should have answers to.
This is the stupid thing. I was on the communications route, and then I decided I want to be a dietitian.
Oh, because you're comping. Yeah, you told me that.
So now I'm looking at freshman studies,
We're going into
which
genetics.
is
She's gonna start
undeclared.
crying. Maria's
Hey.
like, it's fine.
I think it's funny. That's why I'm crying.
You know, if you really don't know, I would really recommend looking at the Occupational Job Outlook Handbook if you have not done that already. That's put out there by the U.S. Department of Labor. It's a website database, and it shows you basically what the growth potential is for that field and what the average salary is, the high and the low, and what you do in that job. And the reason I would mention the Occupational Outlook Handbook from the U.S. Department of Labor is that you want to go into a field that's A, you can make some money, and B, it's going to be growing. I did a hitch for a year as a librarian, and that's like got negative 25% growth.
Yes.
Because what's happening to libraries? Why are they going down? Because they're going digital. I mean, not only Kindles, but I mean, if you're doing research with databases, do you have to actually even go to a library anymore?
I just maybe.
You got an internet, what do you have?
Access to all things.
Access to everything. So now libraries are doing things like board game Fridays and crap like that, which, you know, is fine, but,
Bingo night.
you know, I don't know.
I have a good question.
Yes?
Where is the best place to sit in a lecture hall?
The front.
Oh.
is
I
what
would say the
heard.
front.
But what
do you
if
wanna do
they
the very
call on
front,
you?
or do you want to do like
So, row two.
semi-middle? Okay.
Row
I've
two.
heard students that sit in the front do like a lot better.
But students who sit
Well,
near
yeah,
the,
because the dual room's in the back.
yes.
Should I take notes like I do in your class, or should I?
Should we record?
Should I
and take
type
notes?
on my laptop? What's
My advice would be to take alphanumeric lecture notes.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And the reason I would say that is almost every study, cognitive study has shown that if you handwrite something, you remember it a whole lot better than if you type it.
I can't read my
What if
handwriting,
you
so that's a problem.
If you handwrite it and type it, that's fine.
Because I might do that.
But it's the handwriting first that's imperative.
And should we record
Uh,
it?
blue
I-
pen or?
I would, whatever pen you like. The other part of this that I would recommend is, your other question was, should you record it? Heck no, never, ever record it. Sometimes the professors will have it recorded, kind of like Jenna's been doing here, and sometimes not. But I will tell you my experience as a college student. You're going to be busy enough that how many times are you going to, if you couldn't take notes on it the first time and follow it, are you going to go back and re-watch an audio or video recording taking notes on it? That just forces you to do the initial step first.
I've never recorded any lecture.
I would not. I don't recommend it, just as far as going back and retaking notes.
Okay.
I just don't, I found that students do that, and then they're like, oh, I'll get to that, oh, I'll get to that, oh, I'll get to it, and then they get to their first unit test, and they have no notes, and they've got 25 lectures to go through. You know, now, I'm not saying that you're a procrastinator, that's not my, but why not, if you're sitting through the lecture, the biggest tip that I would give you is, A, go to class. B, take good notes while you're in the class. Because one of the things that it was kind of interesting, I more or less kind of sat in on an interview for a teacher yesterday, and one of the things that's kind of interesting is I was talking to my supervisors, and they were, talking about teaching styles and saying like you're probably the only person who really lectures here at Farmington High School anymore, and I think that's probably true. But the irony is, in college, what is everything going to be in college?
Lectures.
It's going to be a lecture, or it's going to be a roundtable discussion. Unless you're an elementary education major, you're not going to be doing shoulder partners and
We have labs too.
think square. Well, in science, you will have labs, and that's fine. That's what it should
But
be.
you listen to lecture before you do the lab.
Yes, but what I mean is, it's really kind of ironic, because I think one of the problems that our students are having increasingly is there's a disconnect between the teaching style in higher education and the teaching style in K through 12. In K through 12, we want it to be increasingly more hands-on and tactile, and do stations more like elementary school and go around the room and do that, which is fine. But that's not what higher ed typically is like. And if you don't know how to do, and I think I am the way I am, in part because I'm old, but also my teaching career started in higher education. I mean, the first class I ever taught was at Truman State University. And I kind of went the backwards route. I taught at Truman and SLU and a few other places, and then went to high school. So that kind of influenced my view more than, kind of the other way around. The thing of it is, though, attend class regularly. Take notes while you're there. And then review those notes once a week at least, if not twice a week. I would also strongly recommend, as you go away to college, that you kind of block off your time like a work schedule, like 40 hours a week. Okay? One of the big problems that people have is that you're going to have a ton of free time. Here at Farmington High School, 40 hours a week, you're captive here. You're just stuck. And then you've got your extra responsibilities after school and all that kind of stuff. But that's pretty much what you're going to have in college. You're going to have a lot of free time. And sometimes this causes people to flourish, because they're like, I don't have to waste time. I can be doing my own thing. On the flip side of that, sometimes people crash and burn because they're like, I can either party all the time, or I can just sleep and play Minecraft 24/7. And then,
I saw that, that's why I looked at you.
but you understand why why that can be a problem. So get up, go to class, block off certain times. Another tip I would give you seniors going away, but also for you juniors and sophomores: have a different place to work than where you have fun.
So not Panera?
Yes. I would recommend that you do not do your homework in your dorm room. Go to a library, go to the student union, separate that somewhere else, have your 40 hours a week where you go do that, and then have your dorm room a place where you relax. Because if you have those two together, that can be,
2,000 different studies.
they have study carrels, they have places all over the place. So I would really kind of recommend that. I also would recommend, just take this like a full-time job. You are spending anywhere between $5,000 and $80,000 a year, depending on where you're going, to get this degree per year. And this is your shot, to paraphrase Hamilton. Okay, do what you need to do to get through it, because you may think, I'm saying this as an old man, but you may think that college is tough, and it is, and there's changes and all of this. This is the one chance in your life where you have the real opportunity to do you. Okay? Focus on what you want to do, what you want to be. mold your future for who you are, for good or ill. But, you know, one of the things about that, folks, is if you do that, it's going to be an awesome time. When you get to be my age, heck, even by the time I was 25, I didn't have that ability anymore, and I probably bet your parents didn't either, because they had jobs and they had kids like you, and you know, responsibilities, and you know, and families are great and responsibilities are great, but you know, you're not going to be able to cultivate your inner life and your talents and your hobbies and all those things that you love about yourself when you have a screaming baby that you have to change their wet diaper, or you have to get up and go to work, or do that. You know, so all I'm saying is, you know, embrace college for the right reasons. I'm not saying you can never have fun, but college is about the degree, and it's expensive enough that it needs to be about the degree. If you just want to have a couple of years where you're partying, and that's your goal, don't go to college. You can go to parties for free. You know, you can just move up there, you can move to Columbia and just get a job at Quick Trip and go to some parties, or as the case may be. Okay, let's talk, any other questions before we go to imperialism? Sorry guys, I really wasn't meaning to rip on this like I did today, but it's alright. Okay, folks, let's talk a little bit about 19th century imperialism. And I've already hit a little bit of this before, but it's kind of a big deal, and it leads into World War I, which is where we're going right now. What is the general definition of imperialism? Imperialism is basically the domination of one culture by another culture. And this domination of one culture by another, sometimes it's directly militarily, and sometimes it's not. And, you know, imperialism is probably one of the biggest social problems that we've had, or major contributors, problems that we've had in our society in the last 200 years. What's a major social problem that we have in the United States today that's based on imperialism? What'd you say? Yeah, you better believe it. How is racism linked to this? Well, gee, how did Africans get to America and become African Americans?
Because white people brought them over here.
Did they just be like, hey, we've got a tour group, we'd like you to come take our Carnival cruise ship over on the triangular trade?
No.
Is that what happened?
No.
See the world in chains. Is that really what it was? Yeah, I mean, no. And why did they bring them over? Was it just so, hey, America's great, Georgia is beautiful in the springtime.
Yeah, you can
Look at our cotton blossoms. What was the reason?
so they can do our work.
So they could do our work. Would you? Yeah. I mean, ultimately the reason for slavery, folks, is economic exploitation. So, you buy people, then you don't have to pay for their labor. Yes! That's how some people got really rich.
Wow.
Okay, boom. Problem number one. Race. And that's still kind of a little touchy subject in America today. Okay? What's another problem that imperialism has produced? Not all at once, folks. What?
Immigration.
Yes, immigration. You know, you look at people in Europe, Britain, for instance, you know, in Britain right now, the whole Brexit thing, we want to pull out of the EU. Well, one of the reasons they want to pull out of the EU, if you went to Europe in 1980 or 1989 and went back today, what will you notice about London or Paris? It's not as wide as it once was. Paris, of course, is the capital of France. London is the capital of Britain. Well, you know, Brexit, pulling out of the EU, has a couple of, European Union has a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is, I think there's a group of folks in Britain who want Britain for the Britons, not for the immigrants. Well, the people who are coming to Britain and France and other traditional white European countries Where are they coming from? Yeah, that used to be colonized or part of the empire of Britain and France. They conquered these people from around the world, and then where are these people now coming? To their quote-unquote mother country. So that's causing a problem, you know, the immigration problem that you see around today. Another thing that you see today, what is the most, and I'm not, well, another problem or issue that you see in shaping the contemporary world, maybe it's not necessarily a problem, but what's the most Catholic nation in the world? Nope. It's not France. It's Central and South America. ¿Por qué?
Why?
Why? Is that why?
Conquistadors.
Conquistadors, por favor. Who are the conquistadors? Yeah, in Espanol, por favor, what does conquistador mean? Conqueror. Gee, so Spanish Catholics went down there and told the natives who lived down there, gee, become what?
Catholic.
Catholic or die.
Wow, you're so good people.
We're
so good people.
We're so good people. And you know,
We did it.
my point is that we could just keep going, but the places that have been conquered during imperialism today are still pretty much, I don't know how to put this in a politically correct term, but places that were colonized in the 19th century, for the most part, aren't really super desirable places to live today. Like, does anyone really want to go to Rwanda?
Huh?
Where's that?
Central Africa?
Rwanda.
Does anyone really want to go to Libya or Algeria? I want to retire in Algeria. Or I want to retire in Syria. I'm going to take my 401k and build a house. What's the problem with that? Why don't I want to do that? Okay, well, I mean, if you go and for the better part of a century and a half you take the economic resources and you kind of destroy the indigenous culture there, which is kind of what imperialism does, what's going to happen?
They're going to have a burning hatred towards white people.
They're going to have a burning hatred towards white people, on one hand, and there's not going to be much wealth left, which is a problem. So, as a white person, I don't like people have a burning hatred against me. That's a problem. Secondly, if there's no wealth left there, that's a problem. Third is, frankly, in many of those countries, if you had some prosperity, what did you do? Leave. Think of it like Doe Run. If you're prosperous, what are you going to be doing?
Going somewhere to cook more meth.
I'm sorry if I offended you from Doe Run, but I mean, one of my former colleagues, the first year I ever taught was high school, was at DeSoto High School, and one of my colleagues there, a PE teacher, who was like in his 30th year, said, the problem with DeSoto is all the smart kids leave, and we're stuck with the ones who aren't smart, and then they have kids like at 15, and it just so moves this process again and again, which I think is a little bit of a hyperbole about DeSoto. But you see kind of the problem. You have this real cultural conflict. So imperialism, I just wanted to touch on, and you can see how that's kind of a real thing. What are the three types of imperialism? Imperialism, there's military imperialism, where you go in, you plant your flag, and you rule. Okay? That would be like the United States and taking over Hawaii in 1893. Okay? Another type would be economic, where you don't go in and rule, but what do? You go in and you take all the economic resources. An example would be largely, things like what the United States did in what were called the banana republics of Nicaragua and Costa Rica. Take the produce there for the United Fruit Company. Third type is cultural. where your culture basically drives out and kills all of the indigenous culture. I know some of you, maybe, any of you in here ever read Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart? Okay, I know a handful of the juniors did. And that's why I didn't read it this year, because I knew some of you already had and as a freshman. But one of the things about it talks about a guy in Nigeria and in the late 19th century, basically how his indigenous culture is just wiped away. And one of the things today that you see is that Western culture is basically widespread everywhere. I mean, today, one of the reasons why the last Star Wars movie wasn't as big as the last Avengers movie is because it didn't play as well in China. What does that tell you about Western movies? If Hollywood is concerned about the Chinese box office. That's cultural imperialism, my friends.
Hey, we don't need to start with that.
Well,
That is unnecessary.
maybe. All right. What is 19th century imperialism fueled by? By the way, is everyone clear on the three types of imperialism? Okay. What is it fueled by? Something called social Darwinism. Okay. Social Darwinism is not founded by Charles Darwin, but it's influenced by his idea about the natural world. Okay. Social Darwinism. Just so we review, yesterday in class we talked about Charles Darwin and natural selection. And the take-home of Charles Darwin's natural selection is what? Survival of the fittest, very good. The survival of the fittest. Well, let's kind of take this to 19th century imperialism. Why is Shaka Zulu in the southern part of Africa fighting with blow darts and sticks? And the British Army fighting with machine guns and artillery.
They don't have the resources to.
They have factories, that's true, but they have evolved. So, according to social Darwinism, why are the British more successful militarily? Because they have evolved. Which another way, using the Darwin term, which means they are more fit. And what's the law of the jungle? What does the lion do to the gazelle? Eat it. So, with social Darwinism, what should a industrialized military power do to a weaker culture like Shaka Zulu's?
Kill them.
Kill them, impose its will, do whatever it wants, because what are they?
The most fit.
They are the most fit. Now, folks, you can also apply this to the poor within your own borders. Why are according to social Darwinist theory, why are the poor poor?
They're fit.
Because they didn't adapt, they're not fit, so what do?
Kill them.
Or let them die off.
Kill them.
Okay.
Okay. What was that one thing that we talked about last semester where it was like those who are weak have to accept what they have to accept?
Yeah, the Delian dialogue.
That's what it is.
Yeah, from the ancient Greeks,
Yeah.
from Thucydides.
I saw homeless
I saw a lot of those in DC.
Yes, it happens. And being a good social Darwinist, you stopped and you backed your car up over him repeatedly. Right? I'm just kidding. But that's what a strong social Darwinist might do.
Gave him some food.
I have technology. You would never do that. I know. Yeah, it's. All right. So do we understand social Darwinism? Okay. Another reason would be missionary zeal. Okay, I've skipped industrialism, I'll come right back to it, but missionary zeal. There were some folks, and this is kind of debated today, even in some Christian circles and some not, but is missionaries going to other cultures, teaching the exclusive nature of their religion a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think? Depends how they're doing it. Melissa, you said no. Why?
Because I think that each religion has the freedom to believe what they want to believe, and I think that everybody has their own opinions, and there's no use in trying to get somebody to convert. I mean, if they hear about it and they want to convert, then fine, but there's no use to just go to them and say, come to my church, because they have their own beliefs. I don't know.
Okay, well, I mean, were the conquistadors, did they do a good thing?
No, they didn't.
But they
said,
created a lot more Christians.
Follow me or die.
But they killed people.
That's not very Christian-like.
Okay. Well, let's say that, Abby Doty here's got she belongs to the Pastafarian religion that worships the great spaghetti pasta meatball. And in her religion, she can have 4 husbands. I'm a Christian missionary, I convert her, and I say you can only have 1. What happens to your other 3 husbands?
Kill them.
Is that what happens?
Oh, well, I don't know that you necessarily have to kill them, but you might have to make them into SpaghettiOs. I don't know. But the whole thing is what do you do? And I mean, but in the 19th century with missionary zeal, a lot of times they weren't trying to necessarily kill people like social Darwinists sometimes would advocate, but you're still exterminating their culture. Think of it like the fate of the Native Americans in the Trans-Mississippi West. You either had to adapt to white culture or die. And if your culture is dying, how are you going to feel? The Industrial Revolution. We've already mentioned that a little bit before, but how did the Industrial Revolution spur imperialism? Well, it was a need for 2 things: markets and raw materials. With the Industrial Revolution, you could make a whole ton of stuff, but what did you need to make sure that you did?
Sell it and have
You gotta have, exactly, you gotta have a place to sell it. So you want to make sure that you have a place to sell this stuff. Then the next part of that would be you'd have to have a place, you need to get raw materials. So why did the British go to India? They wanted indigo. They wanted tea. Okay? They needed materials. Why did the United States basically want Hawaii?
For a military.
Yeah, we wanted fruit. We wanted pineapples, and we wanted vacation spots, and we wanted bananas, and we wanted coconuts, and we wanted a place to sell our disgusting potted meat product called Spam, which ironically Hawaiians love. You do?
I kind of grew up with it, so it's just like kind of raised me.
What is Spam? It comes in a little tin. It's meat that's poured into this tin that's like pig's lips and intestine guts and stuff. That's made into,
It's like Vegemite for America.
You can.
My grandma fries it.
You can do that. You can put it in scrambled eggs. You can use it to regurgitate other things with. You could grill it.
Does it taste like
Ooh.
fried chicken?
No.
It tastes like Spam. Think of a meat product with a wang, but even a little more disgusting. Okay, so you gotta have the Industrial Revolution. The last one up there that I have is the white man's burden. Rudyard Kipling wrote a famous poem. Rudyard Kipling is the British poet, novelist. He's most famously known for writing the Jungle Book, if you're familiar with that. But he also wrote something called The White Man's Burden. And in the White Man's Burden, he said it's up to, and this is very paternalistic. He says, it's not that we white folks, and he's British, okay, want to take over the world. It's our moral obligation because we are advanced. We're A, Christian, and B, we are technologically advanced, and C, we have constitutional ideas. So we've got to take our advancements and modernize and Christianize the world. And it's our burden. We don't want to go to what they called, and this is one of the things about imperialism is it's kind of inherently racist. You know what the British called Africa? I guess I should tell you because I'm afraid what you might guess. The Dark Continent.
What was the reason for that?
Think about it.
Just like plain blank, that's why? Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be like another meaning, but then it just was like... like
Well,
ironically racist.
maybe it's because they're also not as enlightened, it might be that, but that's still a very racist notion if you go with that interpretation. But I mean, you see kind of the problem, and the idea is, well, we've got to bring our ideas. We've got to bring the idea of one man, one vote. We've got to bring the idea of constitutionalism. We've got to bring guns, germs, and steel to these people. And you know, inherently, imperialism is a problem. But imperialism is going to create some problems. One of the things that it's going to do is it's going to create a very terrible state. Belgium carves out the central part of Africa, and that's called the Belgian Congo. And Belgian Congo is a terrible spot, and it is used to help foster the slave trade. France and Britain, in the first age of empire, which is the 1600s, basically get involved with the slave trade. And that's why we have race problems in the Americas. And, you know, this is going to be a huge deal. Even benevolent British folks like Dr. Stanley Livingstone, who went to go explore and help the people of Africa, inherently imperialism kind of has this paternalistic overtone that I'm going to go help you people because you're inferior. You've thrown out this term paternalism. You know what that term means? Yeah, it's fatherly. I'm going to go help you. You remember there was a 50s TV show called Fathers Knows Best. That's kind of, the title of that is paternalism. I'm your father and I know better than you are, so I'm going to help you stupid young people learn your way. I mean, inherently in this idea, and I'm not saying that Stanley Livingstone never helped anyone, but I am saying there's this kind of idea that pat me on the back because I'm helping you. Africa, just to kind of show you, I'm going to turn the light off for a second so you can see this close up here a little bit. Everything on this map of Africa that you can see in the late 19th century that is colored is controlled by a European power. What does that tell you about Africa?
It wasn't Africa.
It wasn't Africa. It was a playground for European imperialism.
Who's the orange?
French.
It's the French. Oops, wrong way. Okay. One of the things about Britain during the Age of Victoria, 19th century, the monarch who has ruled Britain for the second longest time is Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria, the only monarch who has actually gone longer than Queen Victoria is the current English queen, Queen Elizabeth II. But when Victoria was queen, Britain really controlled a quarter of the world's surface. And you can see on this map, everything in red they controlled. Large swaths of Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Burma, India. You can see what they had. And during the 19th century, Britain, because of their powerful navy and their strong industrial base, they were, if you will, kind of the China of the 19th century. They were the big manufacturers. Okay? They dominated much of the world. That's why, if you look at the top 3 spoken languages, in the world today, 2 of the 3 of them are European languages. English and Spanish. And that's directly because of imperialism. And, oh, yeah, I forget, sorry.